Okay, Math 28, 128, this is question 12 on the practice final. This is basically just calculating your basic measures of central tendency. So it gives you a data set. I'll explain how this is organized. It's asking you to do something maybe a little more interesting than just straight out calculating the mean, modian, mid-range, mode, mean, and median, that kind of thing. So let's just break it down. What you got is you get a survey of college students, how much sleep they get on a typical week, night, and the results are shown in the frequency distribution below. Now, this is a frequency distribution, so they're not giving you the data set. Typically, when you're asked to calculate the mean, median, mode, and whatnot, they will give you a data set. This is giving you a data set, but it's in a little more compact format. So let me explain what this frequency distribution is showing you. And what I'd like to do is be able to calculate these four things without having to break out the entire data set. It just makes it easier for us. So here we go. 4 hours of sleep. What this is saying is that there are three people reported that they got 4 hours a night. So if you were breaking out this data set, you would have to write the number 4 3 times. Then you'd have to write the number 5 3 more times. You'd have to write the number 6 4 times. The number 7 5 times. Okay? So that's how it's organizing this data. So there's actually a lot more data in the data set than what you're seeing. You're seeing kind of a condensed version. So we want to be able to answer these questions without having to write that data set out completely. So let's see how we do. I think we can do it. So first of all, it says determine the mid-range. Okay? So A, we want the mid-range, and the mid-range is nothing more than the average of the smallest number in the data set and the largest number in the data set. So it's a pretty straightforward calculation, and the way this data is organized, it's really got it in order. Here's your smallest number, and I know there's 3 of them, but 4 is still the smallest number, and 11 is still the largest number in the data set. So you take the smallest number and the largest number, you add them together, you divide that by 2 because we're finding essentially the average of the range. What is the average of the range? And let's see, that's 15 over 2. And then we get 7.5, and we've got one of the 4 questions answered already. Okay? Now, the second question is also super easy to answer when the data is in this format because it's organized the data for you and you don't have to. Usually the big problem with finding the mode is you have to go through your data set, put it all in order, and that takes as much time as calculating most of these to begin with. You don't have to do that because they've organized the data for you. So what you have to do, the mode is the number that appears most often. And so we can just look down this list and find that 9 appears 7 times. No other number appears more than the number 9. So B is just 9. It appears the most often in the data set. Okay. Now what we want to find is the mean. Okay, so how do we find the mean? That's just the average. That's just the average. So the question here is we need to calculate a couple of things. First of all, how many people were in the survey? Because remember, we add up all the numbers that we got and then divide by the number of numbers. Well, it tells you up here 30 college students were surveyed. So if we add up all these numbers, we should get a total of 30. Okay, and we do. You can see right here, that's 10 right there, that's 20, and then another 10 there, that's 30. So that matches up with the question. There were 30 responses, they're broken out here. But we can't just add these up and divide by 30. That's not going to get the number we want. What we have to do to get the total is take each of these numbers and multiply it by their frequency. So 3 people said they got 4 nights. There would be a 444 in the data set. So we need to think of this as a 12. Okay? We're going to make this one a 15. 3 people said they got 5 hours a night. Here we're going to have 24, 35, 40. Let's see, 63, 20, and 11. So this is the total. If we add this column up, that's going to give us the total of the data set. And then we can simply divide this number by 30 to get the average, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and add these up. Let's see. 11, 16, 19, carry a 2, 13, 19, and I get 220. So all I have to do is take 220, divide that by 30, right? Total number, if we added up everything in the data set, we should have 220. Divide that by the number of responses. I'm just going to use a calculator to do that real quick. 220 divided by 30, and we get 7.3 repeating. Okay, that's the mean. And D, the median. Now, if we'd taken all these numbers and written out the entire data set, it would be the hard way to do it, but we could. We'd write 444, 555, 6666, so on and so on. And we'd have all those numbers stretched out in order. And then we could find the middlemost number. Okay? So here's kind of our problem. We don't want to do that. That's too much work, right? I don't want to write out 30 numbers and then count from either side. And besides, we don't have to. If you look, the data breaks itself up pretty neatly into tens, right? There's an even number, and whenever you have an even number and you're calculating the median, that means that there's not a middle number. There's 2 numbers in the middle, right? So there's going to be 15 on one side and 15 on the other. The middle is going to be right there, right? Because I've got, of my 30 numbers, 15 are this way and 15 are that way. Okay, if you count that up, there's 15 numbers in that direction. So if I was to peer into the data set, let's say I did write it all out, you'd have all these numbers, then in the very middle you'd see a 35, and then you'd see a 40, and there would be 15 numbers over here, and there would be 15 numbers over there. So I don't need to write them all out to know what's going on in the middle. All I have to do is find out what's the average of these 2 numbers. And basically that's 35 plus 40 divided by 2, which is 37.5. And that's the median. And that's all there is to calculating those. You just have to know how to read this table and then how to take advantage of the fact that they've organized this data for you and made a lot of these calculations pretty simple. So there you have it. Question number 12. That should be a pretty easy one.